Dr. Elena Reyes rushed through the hospital doors, her coffee splashing from its cup. The emergency alert had gone off just as her shift was ending. Normally, she would have been heading home to her small apartment, but today was different. "What do we have?" she asked the nurse running beside her. "Something big crashed into Lake Michigan," the nurse said, breathless. "They're bringing in survivors now." Elena nodded, tying her dark hair back as she moved. At 34, she had already seen more than most doctors twice her age. 5 years in war zones had taught her to stay calm when others panicked. Chicago Memorial Hospital had hired her specifically for that steadiness. Through the windows, she saw strange lights in the sky. Helicopters, she thought at first, but their movements were too smooth, too controlled. Then she saw it on the horizon, a massive object, at least the size of a cruise ship, half submerged in the lake. Even from this distance, she could tell, it wasn't from Earth. "Are we really talking about aliens?" confirmed Dr. Marshall, the chief of medicine, joining them in the corridor. "The government's confirming it. First contact, and it's a crash landing in our backyard." Outside, sirens wailed as ambulances pulled into the bay. Elena took a deep breath and pushed through the doors to the ambulance dock. Nothing in medical. School had prepared her for this. The first stretcher carried what looked like a person, if a person were 8 feet tall with bluish copper skin and 4 arms. The being was clearly injured, with a fluid that looked like blue oil leaking from a wound in its chest. Other doctors hesitated, but Elena stepped forward. "Get them to Trauma Room 1, she ordered, placing her hands on the stretcher. The paramedic looked relieved that someone was taking charge. Over the next hour, 13 injured aliens were brought in. The other doctors worked tentatively, afraid to make mistakes with anatomy they didn't understand. But Elena worked with confident precision, examining each patient methodically. "Their blood isn't red," she observed aloud, examining a sample under a microscope. "It's copper-based, not iron-based, like ours." "How do we treat that?" asked a young resident, eyes wide. "We adapt," Elena said simply. She had treated bullet wounds in desert tents with limited supplies. This was just another puzzle to solve. When one of the aliens began convulsing, the monitors, attached to it, going wild. Other doctors backed away. Elena moved closer. "They're having an allergic reaction to the oxygen mix," she realized. "Their atmosphere must have less oxygen than ours. Reduce oxygen flow to 15% and add more nitrogen." The medical team scrambled to follow her instructions. Gradually, the aliens' conditions stabilized. By morning, news helicopters circled the hospital. Outside, crowds gathered, some curious, some frightened, some holding welcome signs. The world had changed overnight. Elena had not slept. She moved from bed to bed, monitoring her patients, making adjustments to their care based on observation. When a second alien went into distress, she noticed patterns in their skin color changes that suggested pain or distress before the monitors could detect it. "You're reading them better than our equipment," Dr. Marshall said, watching her work. Elena shrugged. "Machines only know what we program them to know. In the field, sometimes all you have are your eyes and instincts." On the third day, new visitors arrived at the hospital. Military personnel escorted 3 uninjured aliens into the trauma ward. Unlike the injured ones, these wore what appeared to be uniforms, fitted garments with symbols Elena didn't recognize. The tallest alien stepped forward. It wore a device around its neck, and when it spoke, the device translated. "I am Ambassador Threnzal of the Shirtaki Confederation," the voice from the device said. "We have come for our people." Elena stepped forward when no one else did. "I'm Dr. Elena Reyes. I've been overseeing their care." The alien's 4 eyes, positioned in a diamond pattern on its face, focused on her. "We were told a single human doctor saved 13 lives. This is unexpected. They needed help," Elena said simply. "I'm a doctor. That's what we do." Ambassador Threnzal made a gesture with its upper right arm, and the other aliens moved toward the injured crew members. They carried advanced-looking medical devices Elena didn't recognize. "Our medical officer died in the crash," the ambassador explained. "We expected to recover bodies, not survivors. Our kind requires specific medical care that most species cannot provide." Elena watched as they examined her patients. She had improvised treatments based on her observations. A mixture of blood thinners for their thick copper-based blood, modified, antibiotics when signs of infection appeared, pain management based on their reactions. One of the alien medical team turned to the ambassador, speaking in their language. The ambassador's eyes widened. "He says your treatments are unorthodox but effective," the translation device spoke. "You adapted human medicine for a physiology you had never encountered." "How?" Elena thought about her time in desert field hospitals, treating injuries with limited supplies. Medicine isn't just about technology or knowing all the answers. It's about observation, adaptation, and not giving up on your patients. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. Then it made a gesture that looked like respect, 2 upper arms crossing over its chest. "The Shortstories Confederation is part of a larger galactic community," it said finally. "We were on a diplomatic mission when our ship malfunctioned. In one standard galactic year, the diplomatic vessel Concordance will visit your solar system as part of its route." Elena nodded, not understanding the significance. "We would request that you consider joining its medical team," the ambassador continued. "You possess a quality rare in the galaxy: adaptive medical intuition. Many species have advanced technology but have lost the ability to improvise when that technology fails." Elena stared, trying to process what she was hearing. "You're offering me a job in space? We are offering you an opportunity no human has ever had, to bring your unique skills to species across the stars." The ambassador's translation device couldn't convey emotion, but its body language suggested sincerity. "You would be the first human to serve on an interstellar medical team." As government officials and hospital administrators rushed in, eager to speak with the aliens, Elena stood quietly, considering a future she had never imagined. She had joined medicine to help people, to make a difference. Now people meant something much bigger than she had ever dreamed. On the horizon, through the hospital window, the alien ship was being recovered from Lake Michigan. Beyond it lay stars that humans had only looked at from a distance until now. 3 months had passed since Elena had boarded the Concordance. The massive diplomatic vessel was home to representatives from 17 different species, and Elena was still learning everyone's names. Not an easy task when some species had names that sounded like musical notes or quiet buzzing. Her quarters were small but comfortable, with a window that looked out into the vast darkness of space. Sometimes she would wake up at night and just stare at the unfamiliar stars, wondering if she had made the right choice. Today, Elena was in the medical bay, studying the different medical tools. Some were so advanced they seemed like magic. Devices that could heal broken bones in minutes or scan entire bodies down to the cellular level. "Still trying to understand the cellular regenerator?" asked Dr. Zan Torval, the ship's chief medical officer. He was a Voltahrian, tall and slender with pale blue skin and eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. He had been a doctor for over 200 years. "It's amazing," Elena admitted. "On Earth, this kind of healing would take weeks." Dr. Zan Torval made a sound that Elena had learned was his species' version of a polite laugh. "Your medicine is quaint, but you will learn." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the medical bay. "What's happening?" Elena asked, standing quickly. "Emergency signal," Dr. Zan Torval explained, moving swiftly to the communication panel. "Someone is calling for help." Captain Jarrell, the 6-limbed commander of the Concordance, appeared on the screen. "Medical team to the bridge immediately. We're receiving distress calls from the mining colony on Veros 4. They report an unknown contagion spreading rapidly through the population." Elena followed Dr. Zan Torval to the bridge, where holographic displays showed a small planet orbiting a red sun. "Veros 4 is a mixed-species mining colony," explained Ambassador Threnzal, who had become something of a mentor to Elena. 6,000 inhabitants from 12 different species. They extract rare minerals used in spacecraft construction. The captain turned to the medical team. "We are the closest vessel with advanced medical capabilities. We will arrive in 6 hours. Prepare your team." Dr. Zan Torval nodded confidently. "Our medical AI will analyze the pathogen and synthesize a treatment. Standard procedure." 6 hours later, the Concordance entered orbit around Veros 4. The situation was worse than they had expected. Nearly 1/3 of the colony was already sick, with more falling ill every hour. In the colony's main dome, the Concordance's medical team set up their equipment. Dr. Zan Torval connected their advanced medical AI to the colony's systems, uploading data about the sick patients. "This is strange," he muttered, looking at the results. "The pathogen affects different species in completely different ways. The AI cannot identify a common treatment approach." Elena looked at the data. Silicon-based life forms were experiencing respiratory failure. Carbon-based species were developing neurological symptoms. Some were showing skin lesions, others were going blind. "The AI recommends quarantine and sterilization protocols," Dr. Zan Torval announced grimly. "It cannot find a viable treatment path that would save all affected species." "Sterilization?" Elena asked. "You mean the infected sections of the colony would be sealed and exposed to radiation that would kill all biological material," he explained. "It is the standard protocol when containment fails." "That's thousands of people," Elena protested. "The needs of the many," Dr. Zan Torval said quietly. "If this pathogen spreads beyond this colony, millions could die." The ship's captain gave orders to begin evacuation of the healthy colonists. Medical teams in protective gear moved through the colony, separating the sick from the well. Elena couldn't accept it. She began examining patients herself, moving from bed to bed, taking notes. "Dr. Reyes, we must prepare to leave," Dr. Zan Torval told her. "The evacuation of healthy colonists will be complete in 12 hours. Then sterilization will begin." "I'm not leaving," Elena said firmly. "These are my patients now." "This is not a battlefield hospital on your Earth," he replied. "This is a level 5 contagion. The AI's decision is final." "The AI is wrong," Elena insisted. "Look at these test results. This isn't one disease. It's 2 different pathogens that have somehow merged. One affects silicon-based life. One affects carbon-based life." Dr. Zan Torval examined her findings. "Even if you are correct, we have no treatment for either." Elena thought back to her medical history classes. On Earth centuries ago, we had a disease called smallpox. A doctor named Edward Jenner noticed that people who caught a milder disease called cowpox became immune to smallpox. "What are you suggesting?" "The silicon-based pathogen is deadly to silicon life forms but causes only mild symptoms in carbon-based life. The carbon-based pathogen is the opposite," Elena explained. "What if we could use one to create immunity to the other?" For the next 24 hours, Elena worked without rest. She convinced the captain to delay evacuation by 1 day to test her theory. Using the colony's manufacturing facilities, she created a treatment that exposed each patient to a weakened version of the pathogen that was less dangerous to their biology. It was risky. Some patients got worse before they got better. But after 48 hours, the first treated patients began to recover. "It's working," Elena told Dr. Zan Torval, exhaustion in her voice. "The colony's fabrication units can produce enough treatment for everyone." The Voltarian doctor studied the results carefully. The AI would never have considered this approach. It was programmed to find the optimal solution with the highest success probability. "Your method was improbable. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most obvious one," Elena said. Word spread through the colony. The human doctor had found a cure when the advanced AI had recommended letting them die. By the time the Concordance departed a week later, Elena had become something of a celebrity among the colonists. "They are calling you the Hand of Life," Ambassador Threnzal told her as they watched the planet shrink in the viewport. "Stories of what you did here will spread." "I was just doing my job," Elena said. "No," the ambassador replied. "Your medical AI was doing its job when it recommended sterilization. You did something else entirely. You offered hope when logic said there was none." Dr. Zan Torval had been distant since leaving the colony, but he approached Elena in the medical bay later that day. "I have been a physician for 2 centuries, he said quietly. "I have relied on technology and procedure. I believed you're human. Medicine was primitive." He paused. I was wrong. There is something in your approach that we have lost. Something valuable. Elena smiled. Maybe we can learn from each other. As the Concordance continued its journey through the stars, news of what happened at Verosafor traveled faster than the ship itself. On 100 worlds, people began telling stories about a human doctor who could see what machines could not. The legend was beginning to grow. The Concordance glided into orbit around Axelaris Prime, a planet that gleamed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Elena pressed her hand against the viewport, marveling at the sprawling cities that covered much of the planet's surface. Quite a sight, isn't it? Ambassador Threnzal joined her at the window. Axelaris Prime is the technological heart of the Galactic Alliance. Their medical technology is the most advanced in known space. More advanced than the Concordance's? Elena asked, surprised. Far more, the ambassador confirmed. The Concordance carries standard medical technology. What awaits on Axelaris is exceptional. The next day, Elena joined a small delegation to the planet's surface. The capital city was a marvel of crystal spires and floating platforms. Vehicles moved in orderly patterns through the air, and people of dozens of different species walked the clean streets. Their destination was the Central Medical Academy, a massive complex at the city's heart. Dr. Zan Torval, now treating Elena, with newfound respect after the events at Verosafor, led her through the entrance. Today, Dr. Reyes, you will see the future of medicine, he said with unusual excitement in his voice. What your species might achieve in another 1,000 years. Inside, Elena's jaw dropped. The medical facilities were nothing like she had ever imagined. In one room, doctors manipulated glowing particles with their hands, restructuring damaged tissues at the quantum level. In another, a patient floated in a regeneration chamber, a missing limb slowly regrowing before her eyes. This is incredible, she whispered. Dr. Zeltaran, the Academy's director, greeted them warmly. He was an Axelarian, tall and slender with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Ah, the famous human doctor, he said, his translator converting his melodic language to English. News of your unconventional success at Verosafor has reached even our world. Elena blushed. I just did what needed to be done. Modesty, Dr. Sao, Zeltaran remarked. How refreshing. Come, let me show you our pride. The neural reconstruction chamber. He led them to a special room where a patient lay in a specialized pod. Holographic displays showed brain patterns dancing in the air above. This patient suffered complete brain death 3 days ago, Dr. Zeltaran explained. We are rebuilding their neural pathways from the remaining tissue. They will wake with memories and personality intact. You can bring back the dead? Elena asked, stunned. Not quite, Dr. Zan Torval clarified, but close enough that the distinction is academic. The tour continued through departments specializing in genetic restructuring, consciousness transfer, and aging reversal. Elena felt both amazed and humbled. Her medicine seemed primitive by comparison. That evening, the Academy hosted a formal reception for the Concordance delegation. Elena wore her dress uniform, feeling out of place among the elegant Axelarians. You look troubled, Dr. Zan Torval noted, joining her at the edge of the gathering. All this technology, Elena said quietly. It makes me wonder what I'm doing here. What could I possibly contribute that these people don't already know? Before he could answer, a tremendous boom shook the building. Lights flickered and went out. Screams echoed through the darkness. What's happening? Elena shouted over the sudden chaos. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in red. Dr. Zeltaran rushed toward them, his usually calm face tight with panic. Terrorist attack, he said breathlessly. The central power grid is down. The quantum medical fields are collapsing. What does that mean? Elena asked. It means, Dr. Zan Torval said grimly, that thousands of patients dependent on those fields are now in immediate danger. They rushed to the Academy's emergency center. Reports were coming in from across the city. The main medical facility had lost all power. Backup systems were failing. Patients in various stages of treatment were left vulnerable as the advanced technology shut down. The Axelarian doctors looked lost. Their training had never prepared them for working without their technology. "Can't you stabilize them manually until power is restored?" Elena asked. "Manually?" Dr. Zell Terran looked at her blankly. No one practices manual medicine anymore. It's all machine-guided." Elena looked around the room at the panicking medical staff. Then she straightened her shoulders and raised her voice. "Listen to me. I'm Dr. Elena Reyes from Earth. Our medicine may be less advanced, but we know how to work without technology." She turned to Dr. Zell Terran. "You have basic medical supplies? Bandages, surgical tools, medications?" "In storage, yes, they're kept for historical study." "Get them," Elena ordered. "And I need everyone's attention." Over the next hour, Elena organized the Axelarian medical personnel into teams. She demonstrated basic triage techniques, showed them how to check vital signs without scanners, and taught them to apply pressure to stop bleeding. "Technology is a tool," she told them as they worked, "but the healer's hands and mind are the true instruments of medicine." The situation was desperate. In the quantum regeneration ward, patients whose bodies were mid-reconstruction began to deteriorate. Elena improvised splints and support structures to hold growing limbs in place. In the neural reconstruction unit, she taught doctors how to monitor brain activity through pupil response and reflex tests. As night turned to morning, Elena had transformed from visitor to commander. Axelarian doctors, some of them with centuries of experience, followed her instructions without question. When power was partially restored to some sections, she directed resources where they were most needed. 3 days later, when the crisis had finally passed, the Academy's Great Hall was filled with exhausted medical personnel. The death toll had been high, but without Elena's intervention it would have been catastrophic. Dr. Zell Terran stood before the gathered doctors, his normally perfect appearance now disheveled. "For generations we have believed that technology was the future of medicine," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "We forgot that technology is created to serve healers, not replace them." He turned to Elena, who sat quietly in the front row. "Dr. Reyes has reminded us of something essential, that medicine is not about machines, but about people caring for people." He took a breath. "The Galactic Medical Council has made an unprecedented request. They ask that Dr. Reyes develop a new course of study for our most advanced physicians, a course focused on medical care without technological dependency." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Such a request from the council was extraordinary. "If you are willing," Dr. Zell Terran said to Elena, "you would teach the most knowledgeable doctors in the galaxy how to work with their hands again." Elena looked at the faces turned toward her, alien faces filled with respect and hope. 6 months ago she had been a trauma surgeon in Chicago. Now she was being asked to reshape how medicine was practiced across the stars. "I would be honored," she said simply. As the crowd broke into applause, information networks across Alliance space broadcast the news. The human doctor who had saved Axelaris Prime would now teach the galaxy's greatest medical minds. Elena's image appeared on screens on 100 worlds, and in the shadows, representatives from the isolationist Krex hegemony watched these broadcasts with growing concern. Humans were becoming influential too quickly. Perhaps this doctor needed to be eliminated before she gave humanity too much standing in galactic society. The legend was spreading, and that made her dangerous. The lecture hall was packed with medical professionals from across the galaxy. Elena stood at the podium, explaining techniques for diagnosing neurological conditions without scanning equipment. After 3 months of teaching at the Axelaris Medical Academy, she had become a popular instructor. "Remember," she told the audience, "your senses are powerful diagnostic tools. Look at how the patient moves. Listen to their breathing. Feel the temperature of their skin." In the back of the hall, Dr. Zan Torval watched with pride. The Voltarian physician had become Elena's strongest supporter. Beside him sat Ambassador Threnzal, who had extended Elena's assignment to Axelaris Prime. "She has become quite influential," the ambassador remarked quietly. "Too influential, according to some," Dr. Zan Torval replied. The Krex hegemony has formally protested her teaching position. They claim humans are gaining too much prominence too quickly. The ambassador made a dismissive gesture. The Krex protest everything. They've rejected Alliance membership for centuries. Their xenophobia is well known. As Elena concluded her lecture, the audience rose in applause. She smiled, still not entirely comfortable with her celebrity status. As the crowd began to disperse, she gathered her notes. A sharp crack echoed through the hall. Elena felt something strike her shoulder with tremendous force. She stumbled backward, confusion on her face. Then the pain hit, and she looked down to see blue blood soaking through her white coat. "Shoot her!" someone shouted. Security officers rushed forward as chaos erupted. Elena tried to stay standing, but her legs gave way. Dr. Zan Torval caught her before she hit the floor. "Stay with me, Elena," he said urgently, pressing his hand against her wound. "Medical team now." Through a haze of pain, Elena heard more shouts. Security officers had cornered someone near the exit. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was Dr. Zan Torval's worried face above her. She woke in a recovery pod, the gentle hum of medical equipment around her. Her shoulder ached, but the sharp pain was gone. Ambassador Threnzal sat beside her bed. "Welcome back," the ambassador said. "You gave us quite a scare." "What happened?" Elena asked, her voice hoarse. "An assassination attempt," Threnzal explained, grimly. "A Krex operative infiltrated the academy. The projectile was designed to spread destructive nanites through your body. If not for Dr. Zan Torval's quick action, you would have died." Elena tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "Why would the Krex want to kill me?" "Fear," the ambassador said simply. "Your success threatens their narrative that other species, especially newer ones like humans, are inferior. As your influence grows, so does their concern." The door slid open, and Dr. Zan Torval entered. "Good, you're awake. How do you feel?" "Like I've been shot," Elena said with a weak smile. "Thank you for saving my life." The Voltarian doctor nodded. "A life worth saving. But we have another situation developing." He looked at the ambassador. "The Krex assassin is dying." "Good," Threnzal said coldly. "No, not good," Dr. Zan Torval responded. "Diplomatic tensions are already high. If he dies in Alliance custody, the hegemony could use it as pretext for further aggression." "What's wrong with him?" Elena asked. "An autoimmune disorder unique to the Krex species," Dr. Zan Torval explained. "Our medical systems have no treatment protocols for Krex physiology. They refuse to share their medical data with the Alliance." Aln was quiet for a moment. Then she swung her legs over the side of the bed. "Take me to him." "Absolutely not," the ambassador protested. "He tried to kill you." "I took an oath," Elena said firmly. "The same one doctors on Earth have taken for thousands of years. It doesn't have a clause that excludes those who tried to kill me." Despite protests from security personnel and medical staff, Elena was wheeled into a secure room where the Krex assassin was being held. He was strapped to a bed, his gray-green skin covered in dark patches. His breathing was labored. The Krex looked nothing like Elena had imagined. He had a broad, flat face with small eyes and a wide mouth, 4 short arms extended from a stocky torso. When he saw Elena, his eyes widened in surprise. "You," he rasped in accented standard. "Why are you here?" "I'm a doctor," Elena said simply. "You're sick. I'm going to try to help you." The Krex made a harsh sound that might have been laughter. "You cannot. No one outside the hegemony knows how to treat Carthian syndrome." "Then you'll be the first," Elena replied, examining the monitors around his bed. For the next 3 days, Elena worked with Dr. Zan Torval to understand the Krex's condition. With no medical database to reference, she had to rely on observation and questioning. The assassin, who called himself Drav, was initially hostile, but gradually began to answer her medical questions as his condition worsened. "Your immune system is attacking your respiratory tissue," Elena explained on the 3rd day, showing him test results. "It's similar to conditions we have on Earth. I think we can try an immunosuppressive therapy combined with tissue regeneration. Why? Drav asked weakly. Why help the one who tried to end your life? Elena checked his IV line before answering. On my world, there's a story about a traveler who is beaten and robbed. Several people pass by without helping. Then a person from an enemy tribe stops and cares for him, even though their peoples hate each other. She adjusted his medication. We call it the Good Samaritan. The point is that compassion shouldn't depend on who someone is. The treatment was risky. Elena had to make adjustments hourly as she observed Drav's reactions. On the fourth day, his condition began to stabilize. By the fifth, the dark patches on his skin were fading. News of the treatment spread quickly through diplomatic channels. The human doctor had successfully treated a Krex patient, something Alliance physicians had never accomplished. 1 week after the assassination attempt, Elena was in her quarters when Ambassador Threnzal arrived with urgent news. A Krex battle. Cruiser has entered the system, he said, his voice tense. They are demanding to speak with you directly. Me? Why? They say their high commander is ill with the same condition as the assassin. They've monitored our communications and know of your treatment. The ambassador looked grim. This could be a trap. Against the advice of security, Elena agreed to meet with the Krex representatives aboard the Concordance in neutral space. When the Krex shuttle docked, she stood nervously beside Ambassador Threnzal in the reception area. 4 Krex guards entered, first followed by a stretcher bearing an elderly Krex whose skin was covered with the familiar dark patches. A tall Krex official walked beside the stretcher. I am Sub-Commander Volk, he announced. I bring High Commander Traz of the Krex hegemony. Our physicians cannot halt the progression of his illness. He looked at Elena with a mixture of hope and suspicion. We are requesting your assistance. Elena stepped forward, already examining the High Commander's condition. I'll do what I can, she said. As she began work on the most powerful leader of a species that had tried to kill her, Elena realized that this was more than just medicine. It was diplomacy through healing. Building a bridge where politicians had failed for centuries. The High Commander opened his eyes and looked at her. The assassin we sent, he said weakly. Did he succeed? No, Elena replied, preparing medication. But he taught me how to treat your condition. In a way, he's helping me save your life. For the first time in 70 years, a Krex leader was in conversation with Alliance representatives. And the subject wasn't war or politics, but medicine. The legend grew stronger. 2 years had passed since Elena first boarded the Concordance. What had begun as a medical assignment had evolved into something much more significant. After successfully treating the Krex High Commander, Elena had become an unofficial ambassador between species. The Krex, with their warrior culture, held a saying, "One who saves your life owns your death." By saving their leader, Elena had earned their highest form of respect. The Concordance itself had become a traveling embassy, with Elena as its unofficial heart. Species across the galaxy requested her presence, not for her technological knowledge, but for her uniquely human perspective. Elena sat in her quarters reviewing medical files. At 36, she had seen more of the galaxy than any human in history. Her dark hair now had a few strands of silver, evidence of the stress and challenges she had faced. A chime sounded at her door. Enter, she called. Ambassador Threnzal stepped into the room looking unusually solemn. Dr. Reyes, we have received a most unexpected communication. Another medical emergency? Elena asked, already reaching for her kit. Not exactly. The ambassador hesitated. We have received a request from the Archeons. Elena's eyes widened. Even she knew that name. The Archeons? I thought they were almost mythical. Very real, but very reclusive, Threnzal explained. They are the oldest known species in the galaxy. They achieved spaceflight when most other species were still developing written language. They have maintained isolation for millennia, allowing only minimal diplomatic contact. What do they want with us? Not with us, the ambassador corrected. With you, specifically. They say they face extinction from a neurological condition, affecting their collective consciousness. Despite their advanced technology, they can find no solution. The Concordance altered course, heading toward the ancient Archeon homeworld, a planet orbiting a dying star on the galaxy's outer rim. As they approached, Elena stood on the observation deck, watching the strange world grow larger in the viewport. The planet was unlike any she had seen before. Massive crystalline structures covered its surface, glowing with inner light. There were no oceans or forests. The surface had been completely transformed by intelligent design over millions of years. "It's beautiful," Elena whispered. "And old," Dr. Zan Torval said, joining her at the window. "The Archeons have records dating back 20 million years. Some believe they were the first sentient species to evolve in our galaxy." A delegation from the Concordance, led by Elena, Ambassador Threnzal, and Captain Gerald, took a shuttle to the planet's surface. They landed near a towering crystal spire that pulsed with gentle light. As they exited the shuttle, 3 figures approached. Elena had tried to prepare herself for meeting the Archeons, but nothing could have readied her for their actual appearance. They were tall and slender, with bodies that seemed partly physical and partly energy. Their skin was translucent, revealing complex patterns of light flowing beneath the surface. They had no visible mouths, yet when they spoke, Elena heard their voices directly in her mind. Dr. Elena Reyes of Earth, the foremost Archeon, communicated. "I am Elder Voice Luminex. We welcome you to our world." Elena bowed slightly. "Thank you for inviting us. I understand you're facing a medical crisis." "Follow," the Elder Voice replied. They were led into the crystal spire, which opened to reveal a vast interior space. Thousands of Archeons moved throughout the structure, connected by threads of light that passed between them. "What you are seeing," Elder Voice explained, "is our collective. We exist as individuals, but also as a unified consciousness. For millions of years, this connection has been our strength." In the center of the space was a pool of swirling energy. Archeons stood around it, the light within their bodies pulsing in synchronization with the pool. "This is the nexus, where our collective consciousness is maintained," another Archeon explained. "But something is happening to it, and to us." Elder Voice gestured toward several Archeons who lay on crystalline platforms. Unlike the others, the light within them flickered erratically. "The connection is failing," Elder Voice said, sorrow evident in the mental voice. "Individuals are becoming disconnected from the collective. When this happens, they quickly deteriorate and die. Our population has decreased by 1/3 in the past cycle." Elena approached one of the affected Archeons, studying the patterns of light. "May I?" she asked, reaching toward the being. "You may," Elder Voice permitted. Elena placed her hand gently on the Archeon's surface. It felt warm and vibrated slightly, like touching an electronic device. She closed her eyes, trying to sense the patterns. "How long has this been happening?" she asked. "It began 3 cycles ago," another Archeon answered. "At first it was only the very old or very young who lost connection. Now it affects all ages." Elena spent the next several days studying the Archeons. She used the Concordance's medical equipment to scan their biology and the strange energy patterns that connected them. Dr. Zan Torval assisted, his centuries of medical knowledge proving valuable. On the 5th day, Elena called the Archeon leaders together. "I think I understand what's happening," she said, displaying her findings on a holographic projection. "Your species has been so technologically advanced for so long that your biology has become almost vestigial. Your technology solves all problems before natural adaptation can occur." "This is accurate," Elder Voice acknowledged. "We have guided our own evolution for millions of years." "That's the problem," Elena explained. "Your collective consciousness has become too uniform. There's no variation, no diversity of thought or neural patterns. It's like a monoculture in agriculture. When a disease strikes, it affects everything the same way because everything is identical." "What is your recommendation?" an Archeon asked. Elena took a deep breath. Your collective consciousness needs to be temporarily severed. Individuals need to develop independent neural patterns. When reconnected, these diverse patterns would create a more robust collective mind. The Archaeans reacted with alarm, their light patterns flashing rapidly. What you suggest would destroy the very essence of our civilization, Elder Voice said. For millions of years we have been one mind with many bodies. I understand this is radical, Elena acknowledged, but sometimes healing requires difficult measures. On Earth we have a saying, sometimes you must break a bone that has healed incorrectly so it can be reset properly. After much debate among themselves, the Archaeans made their decision. With no alternatives, they consented to Elena's treatment. For 3 months, Elena monitored a society of individuals experiencing separateness for the first time in thousands of generations. It was chaotic at first. Many Archaeans struggled with individual decision-making after eons of collective thought. But gradually, new neural patterns began to form, unique to each individual. When the time came for reconnection, Elena stood beside Elder Voice at the Nexus. Are you certain this will work? The Archaean asked, a new hint of individual personality in the mental voice. No, Elena admitted honestly, but I believe in the strength that comes from diversity. The reconnection process began. Light flowed between the Archaeans once more, but different than before, more vibrant, with complex patterns that shifted and changed rather than moving in perfect synchronization. When it was complete, Elder Voice turned to Elena. The collective is transformed. We are still one, but now we are many within the one. Stronger, more adaptable. In gratitude, the Archaeans shared with Elena something they had shown no other visitor. The memory spire, containing records of their encounters with ancient civilizations that had seeded the galaxy with life. Your species is young, Elder Voice communicated as Elena marveled at the historical records. But you carry something we had forgotten, the wisdom of imperfection. As the concordance prepared to depart, Elder Voice presented Elena with a small crystal that glowed with inner light. This contains a fraction of our collective knowledge, the Archaean explained. Not technology. We know you must find your own path there, but understanding of life itself. May it serve your people. Well, Elena accepted the gift with reverence, knowing she carried something beyond value. Not just knowledge, but a connection between the galaxy's youngest spacefaring species and its oldest. The legend of the human doctor who had saved the ancient ones spread across the stars like wildfire. Elena's 5-year contract with the Concordance was nearing its end. Now serving as the ship's chief medical officer, after Dr. Zan Torval retired to write philosophical treatises on intuitive medicine, she had visited 87 worlds and treated over 300 species. Her approaches had been formalized into a new field called adaptive medicine, now taught in medical academies throughout Alliance space. Her surgical techniques had been programmed into medical AIs, her diagnostic approaches encoded into new protocols. But as she stood in her quarters, looking at the small earth plant she had kept alive all these years, Elena wondered what would come next. Return to Earth? Stay with the Concordance? The weight of the decision pressed on her. Captain Gerald, who had become a close friend over the years, joined her for dinner in her quarters. Have you decided? The captain asked, his 6-limbed form relaxed in the specially designed chair. Not yet, Elena admitted. Earth seems almost foreign now, but I miss it. Their meal was interrupted by an urgent message. A spatial anomaly had been detected in their path. The captain hurried to the bridge with Elena following. On the main view screen, a swirling distortion twisted the stars out of shape. Science officers worked frantically at their stations. Analysis? Captain Jarrell demanded. Unknown spatial phenomenon, the science officer reported. It's expanding rapidly. Alter course, the captain ordered. Too late, the officer replied. The ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as systems failed across the vessel. Elena was thrown against a console as the lights flickered and died. When emergency power came on, the view screen showed unfamiliar stars. "Where are we?" the captain asked, helping Elena to her feet. "Unknown," the navigation officer replied. "The spatial anomaly has displaced us. Communications are down. Main engines are offline." "Casualties?" Elena asked, already moving toward the exit. "Reports coming in from all decks," the officer said. "Medical team requested in shuttle bay." Ambassador Threnzal was inspecting the diplomatic shuttle when we hit the anomaly. Elena rushed to the shuttle bay. She found the ambassador pinned under collapsed equipment, bleeding from multiple wounds. "Don't move," she told him, scanning his injuries with her medical device. "We'll get you out." Over the next few hours, Elena treated dozens of injured crew members as repair teams worked to restore the ship's systems. When the captain called a meeting of senior staff, the news was grim. "We've been displaced approximately 4,000 light-years from our previous position," he explained. "The main engines are severely damaged. We can achieve limited movement with auxiliary power, but not enough for interstellar travel." "What about communications?" Ambassador Threnzal asked, his arm now in a healing cast. "Short range only," the captain replied. "We've detected a habitable planet in this system. Our best option is to land and make repairs." The descent to the planet was rough, the damaged Concordance barely managing a controlled crash landing in a forested area. Scans showed the atmosphere was breathable, and the planet supported abundant life. "Preliminary scans indicate a pre-space flight civilization," the science officer reported. "Early industrial development similar to Earth's 19th century. They're concentrated on the northern continent, about 200 kilometers from our position." Ambassador Threnzal, still recovering from his injuries, looked worried. "The non-interference protocols are clear. We must avoid contact with developing species." The crew established a hidden base camp near the ship. Repair estimates suggested it would take at least 6 months to restore basic interstellar capabilities. They would need to remain undetected during that time. 3 weeks into repairs, a scout reported troubling news. The native population was suffering from a rapidly spreading disease. Entire communities were falling ill. "It appears to be a viral pandemic," the science officer explained, showing images of the natives, humanoid beings with pale blue skin and 4-fingered hands. "At the current rate of spread, it could wipe out their entire civilization. We cannot interfere," Ambassador Threnzal insisted. "The protocols exist for good reason. Altering a species' development has unpredictable consequences." Elena had remained silent during the discussion, but now she spoke up. "So we just watch them die when we have the means to help. The needs of the many across the galaxy outweigh the needs of this one developing world," the ambassador argued. "Interfering could alter the course of their entire civilization." "Saving them will alter their course," Elena agreed. "Letting them die will also alter their course. The question is, which alteration can we live with?" The debate continued for days as the pandemic worsened. Finally, Elena made her decision. One night, she took a small medical kit and slipped away from the camp. When the captain discovered her missing the next morning, he immediately knew where she had gone. He found her in a small village, working with the local healers, teaching them how to create vaccines using their limited resources. "You've broken the most fundamental rule of interstellar relations," he said quietly when they were alone. "I know," Elena replied, not looking up from her work. "I'll accept whatever punishment comes, but I couldn't watch them die, knowing I could prevent it." What was intended to be a quick secret intervention became something much more. The pandemic was worse than they had realized, and Elena couldn't leave until she had helped the natives establish proper medical protocols. Weeks turned into months and months into a year. By the time Alliance rescue ships finally located the Concordance, Elena had not merely saved a population, she had changed their developmental trajectory, advancing their medical science by centuries. As Elena boarded the rescue vessel, a crowd of natives watched from a distance. They had given her a name in their language that roughly translated to healer from the stars. Their civilization would remember her visit as a pivotal moment in their history. The diplomatic implications were enormous. Elena had violated the non-interference protocols that had governed galactic diplomacy for millennia. The Galactic Council convened to determine her fate, and by extension, humanity's standing in the Alliance. In a chamber filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds, Elena stood alone, defending not just her actions, but her species' approach to the galaxy. "We humans have a history of making mistakes," she admitted to the assembled council. "But we also have a history of learning from them. Perhaps that's what I've brought to your alliance, not just medicine, but the willingness to risk failure in pursuit of something better." The debate lasted for days. Some council members called for severe sanctions against Earth. Others argued that Elena's actions, while against protocol, had demonstrated a moral courage that was admirable. In the end, the council's verdict surprised everyone. Elena's methods would become the foundation for a new approach to emerging civilizations. Rather than isolation or technological guidance, the Alliance would adopt adaptive mentorship, helping developing worlds find their own solutions. When Elena finally returned to Earth after 6 years in space, she found a changed planet. Human medical science had been transformed by the knowledge she had sent back. Earth had become a medical research hub for the Alliance, with alien physicians coming to study human intuition alongside advanced technology. The Chicago Medical Center, where she had once worked, now housed the Elena Reyes Interspecies Medical Academy, the first of its kind on Earth. As she walked through its doors, alien and human medical students alike fell silent, recognizing the doctor whose compassion had changed the course of galactic medicine. She had left Earth as a trauma surgeon. From Chicago, she returned as a legend, not for conquering worlds or commanding fleets, but for proving that humanity's greatest strength was never technological superiority, but the uniquely human ability to care for others across any divide. The galaxy had many warriors, politicians, and engineers, but it had needed a human doctor to teach it how to heal.